Okay, all right. Good morning. It is a great blessing to be here at Salem with all of you. I've already just experienced the love of Jesus just in meeting you guys coming in this morning, and it is indeed a blessing to be here, bring deep gratitude from the home, our board, our staff, our leadership. You guys are a faithful ministry partner in the caring of children and youth and families in crisis, and we couldn't do it without individuals and churches like you guys. So I want to start off first with our gospel reading, and this comes out of Luke 8, verses 40 through 56. So now when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. And then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house, because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. And as Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. And when they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." And then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. And in the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." While Jesus was still speaking, someone from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader, "Your daughter is dead," he said. "Don't bother the teacher anymore." Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just believe, and she will be healed." And when he arrived at the house of Jairus, he did not let anyone go in with him except for Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. Meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourning for her. "Stop wailing," Jesus said. "She's not dead, but asleep." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand and said, "My child, get up." And her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. And Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astonished, and he ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Again, it is most definitely my privilege to be here at Salem this morning. As a ministry partner, you guys are in a shared calling with us, and now we are in our 55th year, and it's a calling from God to at-risk and homeless children and families that we serve on and off campus. When Jesus performed his first miracle at the wedding in Canaan, he turned the water into wine. Do you remember what happened first, right before that? What happened before that is that Mary told the servants, "Whatever he says, do it." Whatever he says, do it. I believe that the Lord will speak to all of us today. Our responsibility is whatever he says, do it. Our walk with Christ is so much about listening and obeying. We've just read the passage from Luke, so let's set this up. Jesus has just calmed the storm with the disciples in his boat with a simple "Peace, be still." And then he's cast out a legion of demons out of a man that was living among the tombs, and now this man's healed, dressed, sitting at the feet of Jesus in a right mind. And I would call that maybe a great day at the office, but not for Jesus. He's only begun. And so you got the crowds gathering, and they're all expecting Jesus. And the synagogue leader named Jairus came and fell at his feet. He's desperate. His only daughter of 12 years old is dying. So he knew where to go and who to find. Here you see a heart of a father for his daughter. Whatever he takes, he's going to find Jesus. And he finds him face to face. And he begins to plead and knock like on a door. He is not going to give up. But something happens as Jesus continues through this crowd that is crushing him. Somehow, some way, a woman comes that's been bleeding for 12 years. The entire life of the 12-year-old daughter. Very interesting. No one's been able to help her. And how does she get through this crowd with her unbearable pain? Her faith and she's just unrelentless to get to Jesus. It's just unbelievable. And she comes behind him and touches the hem of his garment, and immediately her bleeding stops. And then, of course, Jesus says, "Who touched me?" And everyone denied touching him. And then Peter said, basically, everybody's touching you. The crowd's overwhelming. But, Jesus is not going to get deterred. He said, no, someone's touched me because I know power has gone out from me. Can you imagine the power that's coming through those threads? I mean, those threads were like a conductor, like an interstate power line flowing to her faith. And of course, there was no place for her to hide, and she fell at her feet, and she told him why she had touched him, and that she had been immediately healed. So then he calls her daughter, an unclean woman bleeding for 12 years, and Jesus calls her daughter, tells her that her faith has healed her, and to go in peace. It's been a day of peace. He speaks peace over a storm. He speaks peace over a man that's possessed by a legion of demons. He speaks peace over this woman. What kind of faith does she have that if she would only touch the hem of his garment, that she would be touched by the power of the Son of God? If we truly, truly knew the power of God available to us and the depth of His love individually, we'd run to Him every day. Nothing could deter us from getting to Jesus. And this woman's faith did not allow anything to deter her. So what's going on with Jairus? He hasn't given up. He's right there. But then we hear that from someone that don't bother the teacher anymore. Your daughter's dead. That sounds final. How's Jesus respond? Don't be afraid. He's speaking peace to the Father. Just believe. And of course, they went to the house, and they were mourning, wailing, and Jesus told them to stop. She's not dead. She's only asleep. Then Jesus takes this 12-year-old girl by the hand and says, "My child, get up." He calls her my child, tells her to get up. And immediately her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Now, this scene of this precious girl being raised from the dead was incredibly captured in the Jesus movie. Many of you might have seen back in the 80s. It's produced by Worldwide Pictures and part of Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. And when I was in high school growing up in Meridian, Mississippi, my parents were the city coordinators working with Worldwide Pictures as this movie was shown for weeks and weeks, and hundreds of individuals came to a saving knowledge of Christ in theaters. This is part of my high school bringing up, and this scene of Jesus raising from the dead this 12-year-old girl, this scene is forever captured in my heart. This is what had happened. Now, little would I know then that I would later preach about this miracle later. But you've got two real life stories of faith being interwoven with Jesus at the same time. This woman doing whatever she's got to do to touch the hem of His garment. Expectation as she stretches out to Jesus that life will not be the same for her. And it's not. Her faith is the catalyst for her own healing. But we got this 12-year-old girl who's dying, and she's not able to get to Jesus. She can't. What happens? Her father is determined to stand in the gap. This is different. This is taking someone else. It is taking someone else with a heart for this child, someone who's willing to put everything else aside. His daughter is dying, and she's not able to get to Jesus on her own, and he knows that he can. So he does not give up. He doesn't even give up when he learns that she is dead. And he takes Jesus right to her. And in the natural, hope is over, but we serve a Lord that overrules the natural, and of course, He brings this child to life. This father stands in the gap. When we have at-risk and homeless children that come to the Presbyterian Home for Children, individually, so many have experienced severe trauma, neglect, maybe even starvation at times. They have experienced fear, abuse, and hope for their future has eluded them. When I was installed as president of the home 5 years ago, I came off the stage at the end of my message, and I picked up a beautiful little African-American 2-year-old girl in my arms, and I kept preaching. Her name is Journey, and she and her mother were living in a car in Atlanta with everything in plastic bags, homeless. Yet in God's eyes, both made in the image of Almighty God, each with immeasurable value and great purpose. And it is because of individuals like yourself and churches like Salem partnering with us that we're able to get Journey and her mother and other children and teens and moms and young and female adults and families on a path of hope. We surround them with the love of Jesus at the Presbyterian Home for Children, a place that was birthed in the heart of God and planted in our home, Talladega, right down the road. It is a place of healing with a path of hope. We are caring for and empowering both child and mother in our secure dwelling program, each on their own level, and moving these moms on a path of hope toward independence. Unlike anywhere else in the state, we're a transitional shelter. So we're caring for homeless children, babies to age 18, along with their female caregiver, maybe a mom, maybe a grandmother. There's a lot of wonderful places for homeless women in Alabama, not so much for women and children. So we're providing hope. We also provide hope to 13 to 17-year-old girls in our moderate care program. This is a residential therapeutic treatment program where we help our girls who've experienced extreme trauma and or neglect to begin to get healing. Most of them come out of a psychiatric facility. We help raise their level of self-esteem and improve their decision-making skills and discover methods for building healthy relationships. One of the toughest cases, most difficult cases that I can remember was a 13-year-old girl. When she came to the home, just unbelievable trauma, abuse, just really ripped my heart out. She had never had a birthday party until she came to the home. We gave her the biggest birthday party ever. Once I found that out. And the other girls spent their own money helping give her just so much. But she had been so abused that she was acting more like a 7-year-old with like a really big stuffed animal, not a typical 13-year-old. And when I first met her, and later I would go back to my office, and it was actually during the winter storm when everything was all shut down, and I was the only one there. I just remember calling out to God because I just wanted to fix it. I wanted to fix it so bad, and it was kind of this really struggle with God, as I was just poured out my heart, but ultimately had to come to the place that I was going to have to trust Him. I was going to have to trust Him. He is the great healer, and we are the instruments in His hands. And I was going to do anything, everything possible. I'm a mirror. I get to go out to churches like this. I'm a mirror reflecting the love and compassion of my staff who have been there 30 years, 35 years, 20 years. Just incredible love and compassion and training. But I was going to have to trust God. I was going to have to trust God for her, and I was going to have to trust God for all the individuals that are entrusted into the home. While she was there, I brought Miss Alabama 2017, Jessica Proctor, now Gilmore, to the home. I also took her to the School of the Blind. And that night, Jessica wrote on Facebook that day was the most meaningful day of her entire reign as Miss Alabama. Now, at the School of the Blind, you had blind children touching her crown. At Ascension Leadership Academy, which is our school, she was pouring into our kids and telling them there was nothing they couldn't do. And she was just pouring out the love of Christ and just encouraging them. So we had media there and pictures. And this little girl, it was too much. It was just too much sensory overload. And she went out of the room crying. And I'll never forget it, as long as I live. Jessica went into the hallway and said, "Can I give you a hug?" This little girl needed a hug, wanted a hug, but couldn't even take a hug. And then Jessica knelt down and said, "I need a hug. Would you give me a hug? I really need a hug." And this little girl ran across the hallway into our arms. And that's part of what we do, is provide love and hope. And it was like I said, a day that I'll never forget. We also have a supportive housing program, which is we're helping the women that are in our secure dwelling. So homeless women that have been with us, we help move them down the path of independence. So as they move out, we're able to help them with utilities and rent and other things so that they can move down that path of independence. So our overall support for children in moderate care, these girls, secure dwelling, homeless, boys and girls and their moms, and temporary supportive housing, those graduates, those children, K through 12, include a wonderful educational experience at our fully accredited school located at First Presbyterian of Talladega. It's Ascension Leadership Academy, fully accredited. So many of the children come to us and they're behind. We're able to get them caught up and even excel. And we've got children now with 1 or 2 years of college credits, able to going into their college experience ahead. We're also providing hope for young women 19 to 24 in crisis. We call it transition to adult living, helping them with the goal of educating, equipping, and empowering them to move toward full independence. And many of them do end up, they may go to Talladega College, but they don't have any emotional support, financial support. They may have aged out of foster care. And so, our ladies that work with them, they become like moms, and helping them succeed. I love going to graduation because we've been a part of that whole recipe of success. We're also providing a future to families through our Family Bridges program. This is an intensive in-home services counseling. We're in Calhoun, Cherokee, Clay, Claiborne, Randolph, St. Clair, and Talladega. And we're focusing on family preservation and reunification. So we're keeping families together or we're bringing them back together. This is some of the most difficult work that we do in somebody's home that may or may not want us there. But we are some of our most incredible, courageous employees are those that are going into those homes in whatever condition those homes may be in. And again, helping those families through difficult situations. So y'all have heard a lot of different program names. The bottom line is that we are simply giving away the love of Jesus, and we're helping putting them on a path of hope. We are accredited by Eagle. Eagle is the only faith-based accrediting body in the country for ministry to children. We're also accredited by Social Current, which is the largest accrediting body for nonprofits in the country. And then over the weekend, we learned that Charity Navigator awarded the home a 4-star rating. It's the highest rating for our strong financial health and commitment to accountability and transparency. This is a really big deal, and you guys are the first ones that are hearing it. We're very thankful. We've been a 3-star and 2 points away from 4-star, and we were able to get those 2 points over the weekend. Missional theology is when you see God at work in the world and you join that work. So Salem's been practicing missional theology since your beginning. And here y'all are 1858, so we were, the vote to start us was in 1864, and then we began operating in 1868 in Tuskegee, and then moved in 1891 to Talladega, and that's where our home has been. But so Salem has been practicing missional theology since your beginning. We at the home decided to follow your lead and those of other churches in 2020 during the pandemic, when we started working with some African American Presbyterians in Wilcox and later Marengo County through a small nonprofit called Mentoring in New Dimensions. And we are spreading the love of Jesus to children and youth and families in extreme poverty. Every major holiday, back to school, into school, 4th of July, anytime we can have a reason to celebrate, we are there, and we're bringing love. We're also involved in summer mentoring. We have taken them to summer camp. These are teens that maybe have never even been out of Wilcox County. And this is on the other side of the river. This is not the Camden side. This is the Pine Hill side. So it's a very remote, very poor area. A place that has been seeing so much senseless killings, drive-by killings, and no hope, but we are there. And we're able to make a difference with our partners and our friends. We have also created Union Village. It is a permanent supportive housing community for the deaf, blind, in partnership with the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind, AIDB. We have 5 large cottages. One of them is the former president's home. I didn't need it. So now 6 blind or deaf individuals live there, and probably the best place that they've ever lived. We have 4 small cottages or tiny homes. We have 6 small cottages under construction right now. These are funded by foundations, businesses, churches. We have plans to build up to 42. This is safe and secure, affordable housing for a very vulnerable population. Most of these individuals are coming from very bad living conditions, and maybe a cellar or just a terrible place, particularly for the blind because they can't see. And so we're able to, we're the landowner, or we're the lessor, and then AIDB provides the full wraparound program supports to help these very precious individuals live independently. So this is affordable to them, yet it's providing a diversified source of funding back to the home to help us take care of children, our core ministry, again, for 155 years. There's nothing like it in the country. So you have a tiny home that is, say, funded by the City of Talladega or by Regions Foundation. So the combination of the home and AIDB and our funding partners, we're able to provide this safe, affordable, and secure place for them among pecan trees and oak trees, and then help us take care of children. It's really cool. We also have a new thrift store with 16,000 square feet of sales floor and 4,000 of storage. We're on Highway 77 in Northgate Shopping Center next to Marvin's. Incredible merchandise, great deals, all supporting our ministry. Jesus said in Matthew 19:4, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." And as president, I want to see the kingdom of heaven in the lives of every child, every individual that's impacted by the home. The people have to see hope ahead or they give up. And we've all been called to be a light to those around us here in Alpine, in Talladega, across Alabama, and beyond. We had a homeless mom and two young boys came to the home right before Christmas a couple of years ago. One of the little boys was 11 and one was like 8, and they had been in a shelter with their mom, and it's kind of a scary place, for children. And so we got them into an apartment, and they're helping them decorate the Christmas tree, and got them in. It was about a week before Christmas, and so I was over there and welcoming them as the president. And so the youngest, I was like, "Where is he?" And he was under the bed. His name was Caleb, and he wasn't scared. That's just where he wanted to hang out. And so I climbed under the bed, and so that's where I met Caleb. I was like, "Hey, I'm Mr. Doug. I'm the president here of the home. I'm so glad that you're here." And so that's where we became friends. We're still friends to this day. This family's doing incredibly great. Moved away. We keep up with them. But from that meeting, for Christmas they got a karaoke machine. And so I promised to come back on the first day of school and do karaoke with them. And so they had a wonderful first day of school. And I told them I would be there at 3:30. And I was on the phone with my moderator. And I'm like, "I have an appointment. I'll have to go." And as I walked across there, guys, he's sitting in the window waiting for me. How many times has this little boy had promises broken? I'm not talking about his mom, just other people in his life. Promises broken. And so there he was. And I showed up on time, and somehow he was like a little tree frog and ended up on my shoulders, and he had a mic, I had a mic, and I was making all this up, and we just had a wonderful time. But we keep our promises, whatever it takes. If I got to climb under a bed, Now, he was 8, not 3 like my grandson at the time, so my shoulders were killing me later. But it was all worth it. It was all worth it. When we see with the Lord's eyes and move with His heart, there's people in your life that God is calling you to stand in the gap for and go to Jesus for them. Because they need you. They need you to do that. And it's whatever He says, do it. Whatever it takes. We've got to find Him for ourselves. And we got to find Him for others. Because we have this incredible opportunity and responsibility to partner in this journey called life with our Lord, in the lives of the children and youth that He loves, and trusts them to the home. I'm going to end with one last story in this. I was on my way back from a funeral, and it was the last day of school, and the teenage girls, they were out grilling with the workers and everything, and I was really busy. I had stuff to do for the board, and I knew it was going to be a long night, but I don't like to miss anything interaction with them. And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to figure it out later. I'm going to go hang out and have a burger. And I was sitting there at the table with these precious teenage girls, and one of them had just had her wisdom teeth out, and she was hurting, and she wasn't able to eat a hamburger. And so it was this, I had my wisdom teeth out. It was this cup of sorrow that, we were, how are you doing? I'm just, I'm just expressing the love of Christ for her. Another one was so happy because she saw her grandmother in her 90s for the first time in like 2 years. And she had gotten to spend time with her, and she was so happy, wanted to talk about it. And so I was that cup of joy, cup of sorrow, cup of joy, all at the same time, just the love of Jesus to her and experiencing all of that. And then there was another girl right next to me, and I had just not met her. I knew about her, but she had just come, and she said, are you a preacher? And I said, no. She said, well, you look like a preacher. And she said, well, who are you? And it wasn't flippant. It was just very, who are you? And I'm like, well, I'm Mr. Doug, and I'm the president of the home. And so then she said, what does the president do? And then I looked at her, and I said, wow, that's a great question. Well, I guess here's what a president does. We've got to work with attorneys and accountants, and we got to make sure the maintenance, on the heat works, and we got the grounds to keep. And I just kind of went through this all this list of, we have a board of directors. I was kind of going through this list, and she seemed to be satisfied with that. And so as I was walking back across campus, then I have this conversation that the Lord decided to have with me. And he was like, hey, Doug, what does a president do? You hang out with accountants and attorneys and maintenance people? Really? No. And of course, I knew this. And it's why God called me. I knew this, but I didn't express it at the time. What a president is there is to lead in love, to lead in hope, to lead so that that teenage girl and all those around have an opportunity to succeed and thrive. That's what a president does. So this is a conversation with me and the Lord. I'm like, okay, I missed it, God. I missed it. So I need a redo. And so we had some girls from Huntsville, from one of the churches up there, First Pres of Huntsville, came down, and there were 2 tables, and it was our girls and their girls, and we had pizza. And then right after that, they kind of intertwined, and they're all just teenage girls, and they're all talking and laughing, and then we had this introduction. And so I'm there, and so going around the room, well, I'm Mr. Doug, and I'm the president. And then I looked at this teenage girl and called her name, and I said, you asked me the other day what a president did. I would like a redo on that answer. Would you let me get a redo? And she smiled and said, sure. And then I told her again, no, what a president does is lead in love, lead in hope for you and all of you, so that you experience the love of Jesus and that you have hope for your future. I lead. That's what I do. All this other stuff I have to do. But that's what a president does. And she just beamed just with so much joy and smile as I connected with her on that level. We are so thankful for this partnership, this sharing, this calling to homeless, at-risk, children, youth, moms, young female adults, the deaf and the blind that were right around us, that we were able to do something together with AIDB that they couldn't do on their own. They couldn't have the facility. They can provide the programs, but these are people, they house students. They're not able to house people that are adults living in a cellar. But together we were able to create something very special, and it's part of, and it's no question, it's part of our ministry. God bless you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come here.
Just stay there.